This episode of Sales Players is brought to you by Leadfeeder. You can use the link in the show notes to set up a 21-day extended trial of Leadfeeder for you and your team. You're a sales hunter with literally hundreds of target accounts in your territory and no idea who in your patch is even in the market for your solution. You've pulled all the reports, built all the lists, and you've done a bunch of account research, but you're still in the dark about where to find your low-hanging fruit. And look, you could waste another quarter smiling and dialing, grinding through a cold list and blasting out emails, or you could do what I do and get Leadfeeder. Leadfeeder identifies the companies that visit your company's website and tracks on-site activity so you can see which leads from your region are ready to buy right now. Leadfeeder has customizable notifications, lead scoring, routing, and it works seamlessly with your CRM system. Right now, Sales Players has got the hookup on an extended 21-day free trial offer. So be sure to use the link in the show notes to sign up. Stop burning time and resources on leads that don't convert and sign up for Leadfeeder. Welcome to Sales Players, the #1 podcast for top players in B2B sales.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the world of sales, this is the show for you.
We're all about bringing you fresh, actionable ideas to supercharge your rev gen game.
We dive deep into the mindset, habits, and tools used by top performers in the industry. Generate more leads, close more deals, and build wealth and financial security in B2B sales.
So if you're ready to level up, you've come to the right place. Join the conversation with other like-minded sales players and continue the discussion beyond the show.
Hit the subscribe button, tune into the Sales Players, and let's start winning together.
We've got Dustin, and I am awful, man. I always forget how to pronounce your last name. Will you say your full name for us?
No worries. Everyone does. Dustin Beaudoin.
Beaudoin, duh. Okay. Yeah, super easy. Well, yeah, welcoming Dustin back onto the podcast. And in this episode, he has a pretty exciting update on career, life, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe before we jump into that, give us a quick background overview on your career so far. I think last time we talked a lot about some of the specific things you do to leverage like the full organization to sell. But yeah, give us some background so listeners can catch up on, where you've come from and what you're doing now.
Sure thing. Yeah. So thanks for having me back. It's great to be back. I've been in SaaS sales my whole career. So coming up on 10 years now, and I've been at various stages at every point on the 0 to 50 million ARR journey. Most of that time has been spent as a rep, both selling to SMB as well as doing larger enterprise sales. And then also more recently in sales leadership. And so throughout my whole career, I've known I've wanted to start something and build something. So now was a good time for me to scratch that itch. And so now I'm launching a company called ChatAE, which is a AI co-pilot for sales folks working on the things that I deem AI to actually be good at. So we can obviously chat more about that, but heading into founder mode now, but very much always got the sales hat on for sure.
Yeah. So my first question is did you score the domain name like chatae.com or are you like a .io or something like that?
Yeah. So we're .ai.
.ai. That's cool too, though.
ChatAE.com is actually available.
ChatAE.
I probably should. I don't know if I should say that. Someone can buy it and extort me for it, I guess. But
I'm guessing it's pretty spendy. I'm guessing it's like not one of those $9.99 domain names out there.
Yeah, not many .coms that are, unfortunately.
Yeah, for real. So, okay, cool. So yeah, 10 years plus as enterprise seller. I know you've been in a lot of startups, and that's where you and I really hit it off. Was most of my career's also been spent on early teams, being the first 4 or 5 hires in a company. So, then kind of tell us about how you started to formulate the idea and, where I'm sure, there's a lot of buzz going on about AI right now, and I'm sure the wheels were spinning, but was there any specific moment in time where you were like, this needs to exist and I'm going to be the one that builds it?
Yeah. So as I was thinking about moving into sort of the founder mode of my career, I always knew I'm the type of person that I need to be doing something I'm passionate about if I'm building something. I think that's especially true when you're selling as well. But even more so when you're the founder, right? You can't just walk away and change jobs,
Yeah.
change companies at any point the way we could in sales if we get disillusioned with what we're selling, right? So
Yeah.
I knew it needed to be something that I was passionate about. And at the end of the day, I was thinking through what would Dustin, the account executive, have wished for and wanted. And naturally, with all of the exciting things going on in AI right now, and all of the proliferation of AI tools attacking all types of different workflows that either are being attacked better than before, or in some cases are being attacked that couldn't have been attacked before, it was sort of natural for me to think through, okay, if I were building an AI tool or leveraging the AI technology we have now to improve my day-to-day as an AE and help Dustin, the sales rep, what would that look like? And that led me to sort of narrowing down onto some of the sales workflows that I'm focused on with ChatAE.
Interesting. Okay. And yeah, give us maybe like a quick overview. How does it work? I'm a seller in a startup. I legit am. But most of our listeners are also selling in, earlier companies. Some of them might be in bigger companies. How could I start using the product today to build more pipelines, sell more deals? What's the kind of main idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So taking a step back, the main idea focuses on the fact that even though ChatGPT and other AI startups are popping up left and right, actually a lot of salespeople still aren't leveraging AIs heavily in their daily work for various reasons. Partly because, in my opinion, a lot of AI sales tools focus on the wrong sales workflows.
Right.
And I think at the same time, as sellers and as sales organizations, we're continually being asked to do more with less, create more pipeline, run more calls, handle more deals, but with less resources, especially over the last couple of years since like the SaaS bubble and whatnot. So that's sort of taking a step back, the lay of the land as I see it. When I took a look at the market and took a look at what existing AI sales tools were doing, I saw that a lot of existing AI sales tools overpromise and underdeliver, in my opinion, focusing on wrong workflows like trying to replace BDRs by being an AI BDR or automating pipeline generation. And I just think fundamentally those are the types of things that, one, AI, it's questionable if it's even good at. And two, even if AI got good at, buyers would adjust and, we would see a move away from those kind of things continuing to work as effectively as you oversaturate certain channels. And so I wanted to look at workflows that AI is good at, undeniably, in terms of helping, and also things that don't jeopardize a seller's role or any salesperson's role, and don't even really promise to replace a salesperson in any way. And so what that led me to focus on is a lot of the routine, administrative, boring, quote unquote, work that every AE has to do in their day to day, particularly focusing on pre and post call tasks like call prep, research, follow up, determining next steps. These are the types of things that every AE has to do, especially AEs that are, having their calendars slammed with back to back to back calls. And I think there's an argument to be made that we can use AI to not only do those kinds of things that we know as sellers we should be doing, preparing for every call, doing the right follow-ups and next steps planning for every call after, we can do those things more efficiently. But also I think there's an argument to be made that we can use AI to do those jobs better as well. And so that's really what we're focusing on, those routine, everyday administrative pre and post call tasks, and really trying to help sellers be sort of the best versions of themselves and also be more efficient at the same time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that it's not like your claim isn't that you're going to replace the seller, but that you're actually just going to enhance their day to day. I know there's a lot of like fear mongering out there that someday, AI is going to replace all these white collar jobs,
Right.
and like it probably will for some. I don't know that enterprise selling is one that's on the early list of roles to get replaced. So yeah, generally, like I think I definitely agree with like the bigger vision, which is like this is a toolkit to enhance your ability to do more with less and to be able to, support some of these actions and workflows that without, pretending that you're going to someday be replaced. Right.
100%.
So walk us through like a couple of like your favorite features. Like if you were rolling this out for a client right now, what are some things you'd point their team to so that they could have a really quick like return to value on their investment in ChatAE?
Yeah, 100%. And taking another step back, the other approach we're taking here that I've observed is to the extent that there are solutions using AI to focus on some of these routine administrative tasks like pre-call prep and research and post-call follow-up and next steps planning. I've observed sort of two things. One is they tend to be fairly inaccessible. So I've seen that you have solutions like Gong or, like Microsoft has a sales co-pilot that is embedded into Outlook and Teams and does a pretty good job, admittedly, on helping with a lot of these administrative routine tasks that sellers have. But in both of those cases, they're not the most accessible for the everyday AE. One, in the case of like Microsoft Sales Copilot, your company has to be on, Outlook, Teams, Dynamics, and that's just not the reality, especially for a lot of startups, right? Who are on G Suite and so forth. And two, with some of the legacy solutions like Gong, even Apollo, and some of the others out there that have these one-off AI features sort of included in their product, they're sort of treated as like one-off features and not really the core of what they're focused on. And you also have to be buying into like a broader AI, like forced upon you platform in order to be actually accessing it. So a key aspect that we're focused on too is like making ChatAE easily accessible so that both from a pricing perspective and from a product perspective, AEs can come on to, ChatAE.ai, sign up, immediately get into the product, not have to, bug their IT or RevOps team to, set things up and integrate with Zoom or integrate with Salesforce and so forth, and then immediately be actioning on these various workflows. And so to answer your question about the most common workflows we see, the most common workflows we see folks using us for is pre-call account and prospect research to prep for an upcoming call. And then taking that research to actually formulate a call plan, right? So if I have an upcoming discovery call, I'm going to do some account and prospect research about that person and company I'm meeting with, and then translate that into an actual call prep doc that has, the questions I should be focused on, the structure and flow of the call that I actually should be following based on my sales methodology and based on what we sell and what challenges that company and person are having. And then post-call, once that call takes place, there's a number of action items that every seller knows we have to do and should do well, but can be sort of time consuming and very like monotonous, right? So post-call recaps and email follow-ups that you're sending to that person to summarize accurately everything you talked about and set you on the right path on the deal, as well as just strategically thinking about what the right next steps are. Folks are using ChatAE as both a assistant to help with these pre and post call tasks, as well as a bit of an on-demand sales manager to determine what the right next steps and ways to take a call even are. So it's a quasi approach there, but those are the most common workflows we see around pre-call prep and research, as well as post-call follow-up and next steps planning.
That is awesome, because that's one of the parts of being an AE, especially like as you're selling more enterprise focused or strategic deals, is all of the prep work can get a little bit cumbersome. I mean, it is kind of part of the gig.
Yeah.
But I'm all for like call plans and any way to sort of enhance that process and automate parts of that process. Because otherwise, especially if you're running multiple calls back to back, that is probably a huge use case is like, okay, I've got 3 or 4 calls today. I don't have time to do hours and hours of research on each one, right? Or I don't have even time to do even a full 30 minutes of research between each one. And sure, you can do some prep beforehand, but like being able to actually go in and automate some of that. And then obviously the follow-up to being as important as it is, but also having sort of that reminder that, automation, so you can kind of check out a little bit and it just gets done, right? Because that's such an important part about selling. Maybe take us into some of the, like, how did you kick off the product development as a seller? And this is a topic that I'm really interested in because we've had a few seller to founders on the show. In fact, we had Chris, the founder of Sendoso, on recently.
Nice.
And similar thing, I actually had no idea that he started his career as an AE, as did his co-founder. I just assumed maybe there was one technical person in the mix. And I know with the way the market is, like, almost anyone can launch a company now. Tooling is getting a little easier to do. You don't have to be a full stack engineer to build a product these days. But walk us through your process for that. Did you have a partner that's technical, or have you just rolled up your sleeves and gone all in learning how to design a product and, a user experience and those sorts of things?
There is a lot of truth in the statement that today is easier than ever for non-technical folks to build a product from scratch and get started, both with AI and also with the rise of no-code tools. I think there's a lot of truth in that. For what we wanted to do with ChatAE, though, I knew I needed a technical partner because we're not just providing a like ChatGPT wrapper, and like that is the core of our product. We're providing additional functionality on top of that so that folks have the ability to customize both the inputs and outputs. So we had to build in functionality like template features, so folks can use their own email recap format that they'd like, or their own account planning format that they'd like, or their own prep doc format that they'd like. And then additionally, there's a multimodal aspect to ChatAE where you're interacting with the inputs, but you're also interacting with the outputs. So when you receive an email recap, for example, that is digested from a call transcript or call notes that you took within ChatAE specific, like directly, you can edit that live and make any real-time live changes to the output itself. So there's a multimodal aspect of switching from being in chat mode to being in a doc mode that required some engineering work to actually make happen. So I knew I needed a technical partner. That was probably what took me the longest to get to the point where we are now with launch. I had the idea for ChatAE. I knew a lot of the things I wanted to build. I knew a lot of the ways I wanted it to work, but because of it needing to actually be a little bit more full stack than just a ChatGPT wrapper, I needed to find that technical partner. And it took me a few months, actually.
Yeah.
And I got pretty lucky that a former engineer that I worked with at my last startup where I was head of sales was available, for lack of a better term, and on the market and had entrepreneurial aspirations of his own. And so I got pretty lucky there, but I definitely knew I needed a technical partner because I'm not an engineer, and I knew what I was building would require some true engineering efforts.
Yeah. Talk to us about the team right now. Is it just you, co-founder, and is there anyone else that's working on like go-to-market or ops or any other aspect of the business?
Yeah, it's just the two of us. Myself, I'm handling a combination of go-to-market, sales, and product. And my co-founder, Rashab, who is sort of the engineering mastermind. He's also really good, I will say. He's never worked in sales, but he actually has a good feel for and empathy for sales people and their problems. And so there's a lot of times where we're talking through product ideas and UX ideas, and he actually provides input on things where I wasn't necessarily thinking of and actually make a lot more sense for a salesperson's workflow. So finding a technical co-founder who also has the ability to sort of like flex into putting themselves in the shoes of your user and your buyer, even if that is not the role that they've ever had in their career, I think is so clutch. And I've gotten really lucky with that.
Yeah, that is pretty cool, and probably kind of hard to find, I would imagine, in the marketplace. So talk to us about like first customers, or how you got the first round of customers. Was it personal Rolodex? Did you reach out cold to a list? Did you go scout out, sort of a top ICP profile that you might have had in mind? Give us the lowdown on that.
Yeah, so we have several folks using us now. The other approach that we're taking with ChatAE, I mentioned this at the outset, is we're trying to be a lot more accessible than a lot of these other tools. And so there is definitely an approach that's a little bit more unique where we're going to market in a bit more of a bottoms up fashion, where AEs can actually come in and use the product themselves and sort of become customers themselves, both because of the way the product works and not requiring a heavy lift to get started, and also because of the way we're pricing ChatAE. So a number of our early customers and users right now are both a combination of folks from my network, and we also launched with a wait list. You can think of it as like a beta wait list where we had a number of folks sign up, over 100 people sign up in the first 2 weeks of that wait list. And so several of those folks saw us on LinkedIn, saw some of my posts, and saw the sharing from other folks, and signed up that way. So what I'm happy with is the fact that like right now we have users, customers that are both in network and out, because I think it's really important to get feedback from not just your friends. I think your friends will be honest, but sometimes they don't want to upset you, right? Like they know how hard you're working on something. They don't want to offend you in any way. Whereas folks that are outside your network, like they'll just give it to you straight. And if you can sell someone outside your network and they find value in your product, then you have potentially something, where you can determine to push on it further.
Yeah, I think that's maybe I wouldn't say an unspoken truth, but it's definitely a truth. It's probably spoken about for sure. But when you're building a startup, and this is for anyone out there who's also selling a product early stages, maybe they're the first, again, 1 through 6 hires as an AE or SDR in a startup company. And that's a trend that I see that seems to keep going up because more and more teams like yours are launching.
Yep.
And more people are either going into solarpreneurship or they're joining earlier stage companies. The last 2 years have kind of been pretty brutal on the path of going through like Oracle and then, working at big companies for 30 years. Like that just doesn't work anymore. So more and more people that are tuning into the show are either in your spot where they're trying to launch something of their own, or they're in the first round of hires on the go-to-market or sales side. And it's I think an unspoken truth a little bit, or it's spoken about, but not as much as it should be, is you have to branch out of like that initial Rolodex. Cause to your point, you might put this in front of someone who's a peer, someone you've worked with, and they're not going to give you honest feedback because they like you and they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Yep.
And they'll but what you don't want to do as a founder is become complacent and be building something based on, crooked feedback, if you will, or biased feedback. You want to actually try to go and get this in front of a group of people that has no connection to you and, determine if they genuinely think it solves a business problem for them or genuinely adds value to them. So it's good that you're, proactively going out and participating in that exercise of like getting in front of non-connected people to make sure that the product has that market fit, right?
Yep.
What are some specific campaigns that you've run in addition to those just to try to get the word out there about the product and the brand?
We've been heavy on LinkedIn, and I think I'll be even heavier on that going forward. And I think what's interesting about LinkedIn as a channel for sales and go-to-market founders is that it's not a bunch of like pitching about your product, right? It's talking about things that are helpful for others in your network. In my case, I have a bunch of, sellers and sales leaders following me on LinkedIn. So talking about the lessons I've learned throughout my career, the things I've observed. It's also about your point of view in the market. Like right now, a lot of folks are interested in determining the right way to use AI for their different sales workflows. And so sharing your point of view, your perspective on what is the right way to use AI and what are some of these other startups getting wrong and what are these other approaches, like I rail on like the AI BDR a lot with a lot of my content. What are those approaches getting wrong? And I think folks appreciate seeing those perspectives. So LinkedIn, we've been big on. And honestly, a lot of word of mouth is going to be key for us too, because we do have a bottoms up approach to our product. So if we have, an AE on a team using ChatAE, because it's so accessible and easy and cheap to get started, they can easily turn to their, sellers on their team, and we can spread that way as well. So I do think word of mouth will be important as well.
Yeah. So it sounds, I'm making an assumption here, but it sounds like there's an element of this that's very product-led growth oriented. So I'm an AE, I'm on a team of 10 AEs, and I might find out about this, sign up for, do you guys have a trial or a way to test it out for a couple days?
We do. Yeah,
Cool.
we have a 7-day trial. And so one, because it is so accessible, you don't actually need to integrate it into your recorder or as like a meeting recorder or into your Zoom or don't have to integrate it into Salesforce or anything. You can sort of get started and get value quickly. But we do know it's the type of product that sellers have to be using.
In order to get the value out of it.
Exactly
for sure.
right.
And it's funny, earlier this year, we had Chris Orlob on the show, and he was talking to us about Gong and how it was this like flywheel business. And I'm hearing some similarities. It's like the more data you capture across a broad set of sellers is, more insights that you can gather as a company that can then be repurposed into, value add, whether that's like new features or content, or that's what Gong did, right? Like they took all these stats from across their entire user base and said, hey, it seems like sellers that do X get Y, or, I'm just using those as paraphrased examples, but
Yep.
they could then use that to publish content or blog posts or email newsletters or whatever, but then they would also make that part of, a core feature of the product. So it sounds like it has that opportunity. And I get really pumped when I hear about companies that have sort of that flywheel effect where someone can come in and use it. And as you use it and get more insights, the product gets better and better. And that brings more people in, which gets more insights, and it just creates this really awesome growth company. So that is super exciting to hear. And I love the fact that it's kind of user based first. Like it's an upswell, right?
Yep.
Of business versus like a top down. You're only reaching out to CROs and trying to sell, top down. I think it's cool when it's a mix of both.
Yep.
And I think in startups, getting that user cloud out there is going to be really important.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. We have teams trialing and using it as well. And I do think there is an element where as we improve the product, there's obvious ways that we can build in more collaboration, more team-oriented functionality into the product that make it even easier for teams to onboard. But I also think, as I had mentioned at the outset, like one of the key aspects that I see and I've observed is just a lot of AI tools for sales are coming at it with like a very aggressive, heavy-handed AI platform approach where you have to plug into, 10 or 15 different tools to digest a bunch of data, and you have to have your RevOps team managing a lot of those things, and you have to get sort of the entire organization on board, the entire sales organization on board in order to even like start trialing those kinds of products. And I just think there's an opportunity for a much more accessible version of this, like for software developers, for product managers, for a lot of these other roles that are heavily using AI copilots today. They're doing so in a very bottoms up, accessible way. And we don't have a lot of tools like that on the AI sales side of things that are truly accessible and an AE that by themselves with no additional requirement from or help from anyone at their company or anybody else in general can get started with, both as a paying customer, but also just in using the product. And so the accessibility piece is really key to what we're doing, I think.
Yeah, I love that. What lessons can you share with us? What are some things that you wish you would have done differently in launching the company and going to market that our fans and listeners might get some benefit from hearing, your battle scars?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier how we have both folks in my network using, and because customers of ChatAE, as well as folks from a waitlist launch we did. In retrospect, I would have done the waitlist launch even earlier. We did the waitlist launch when we had basically like a V1 of the product. I would have done the waitlist launch well before we even had a product, and just started getting even more feedback from outside my immediate network. Folks in my network have known I've been building something for the last several months. Folks outside my network, in many cases, found out about ChatAE for the first time when we did the waitlist launch. And so I think the benefit to that was the folks that got on the wait list when we did the launch have been able to get into the product because there was a working product at that point, albeit, a beta V1 product. But I think in retrospect, I would have done the waitlist launch even earlier, gotten more folks from outside my network, talking to us, getting feedback, and really incorporating that into the V1 and beta. I think that's probably the one thing I'd change so far.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Anything else that you might have done differently if you could go back in time and change the course of history?
Honestly, in my sales career, one thing I'll say is I was I knew the way I wanted my career to go. Not everybody has, that like path in their head that they know they want to do. In fact, like most of the reps I've managed and a lot of the reps I've worked with, like don't know if they want to do like management or stick with being an AE. And so for the AEs listening or having that sort of debate in their head, one thing I would have done differently, I did ultimately go into the management route, became a sales leader. I knew I wanted to do that. But actually, one of the things I would have done even more before becoming a sales manager and getting into leadership would have been talking with even more sales leaders that were outside of my company and outside of my network. Ironically, it's kind of related to the point I made about talking to users outside of my network for ChatAE. But the reason I say that is because when I moved into sales management, obviously I was coached and trained and schooled up by some great sales leaders at the company I was at. But that's just one company, one organization's, one sales methodology perspective on leadership. And so for the AEs listening that are debating whether or not to get into leadership, I would say go have as many conversations with other sales leaders, especially young sales leaders outside of your company as you can, so that you can get a real perspective on what it's like being, a leader, being in management at different companies with different sales cycles, with different sales methodologies, so that you're not only informed by the perspective of your own company.
That's actually really solid advice. And I even take it a step further and advocate for, like, even if you get a shot at doing leadership, you might, if you're someone who's compelled to lead or compelled to give and coach and whatever else, try it out. And that's what I did. So I was an SDR leader for a number of years. It at least gave me a taste of what it feels like to have, direct reports and KPIs that you're hitting on the team level. And then, of course, the part for me that changed my trajectory was seeing what it's like to manage upward in an organization and realizing that is something I struggle with and didn't necessarily care to invest in, and probably still don't, and kind of put me on the path that I'm on now. So yeah, I think this is like really solid advice: is go out and, have those conversations with people outside of your organization so you can get a really broad perspective on what it's like being a sales manager across the industry. I love that. Love that. Well, Dustin, just coming up on time here, give us, where can our listeners find you if they want to reach out and get in touch? And then, where can they get started with ChatAE should they decide to move forward?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Dustin Beaudoin on LinkedIn. You'll see me posting not only about ChatAE, but just about my observations on AI and sales in general, my observations and lessons from various stops I've had in my career on things, best practices, and lessons I've learned as an AE or as a sales manager. If you want to get started with ChatAE, you can sign up at chatae.ai. So just go to chatae.ai, sign up, get started. We have a free trial that folks can get started with. And as I mentioned, like feedback and input from folks, especially outside of immediate networks, is huge. And so appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about ChatAE with your network, Jesse.
Yeah, awesome. Well, any final words of wisdom for our listeners out there?
I would
regarding
say
sales, entrepreneurship, anything.
Yeah, I would say AI is not replacing any of us guys. Like, the things that make people buy software and do $50, $100 million deals at the end of the day are still human. Humans buy from humans. But that being said, folks that are not using AI in smart ways for their day-to-day workflows and smartly applying AI to be more efficient and just be better, there's potential for those folks to struggle. So AI is not replacing us as AEs or sales managers, but folks that are not using AI smartly, I would say, start using it smartly, because, it's going to just be the expected tool in our toolkit going forward the way, other past technologies have been.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap, man. Thanks so much for coming back on and sharing so much knowledge with us. Anything we can do to help you, I guess I'll ask that on the air too.
Thank you.
And our listeners are true fans, so they might reach out and offer to help in some way. Anything we can do to help you grow the company?
Give it a try.
Give it a try.
Use ChatAE for your pre-call prep, your pre-call research, your post-call follow-ups. Give a ton of feedback. And anybody who wants to ask me questions either about what it's like building as a non-technical, former sales guy founder, or just has questions about, my point of view on AI or ChatAE specifically, like feel free to DM me or shoot me an email, Dustin@chatae.ai as well. Always down to collaborate and chat about some of these things for sure.
Awesome, man. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to be back.